Welcome back to SAVP. My name is Angelo, and in our last video, we discussed how to film with multiple cameras. Today, we're talking all about conducting corporate interviews. In this video, we're talking all things interview related. We'll get into how to prep your interviewee, some practical setup tips, and how to craft your interview questions by using rich talking points. First things first, let's talk about prepping your subject. You want them to be comfortable, right? Here are some guidelines to help them look and feel their best. When prepping your interviewee, encourage them to come ready for an open and honest conversation. Let them know that there's no need for pre-prepared answers, as you'll guide them through the interview process and help them deliver natural and authentic responses. When it comes to clothing, for the guys, think button-down shirts, polos, or blazers. For the ladies, maybe a nice blouse or a dress. Keeping accessories simple is key to avoiding any glare or noise hitting the mics. When it comes to makeup and hair, aim for a natural and polished look, with the matte finish to keep the shine down. Hair should be neat and tidy, and it might be a good idea to bring a brush or a comb for quick touch-ups. For the guys, grooming facial hair and using a light powder can help keep their faces looking clear and clean. Encourage them to sit or to stand up straight, but remind them to stay relaxed. Keeping eye contact with the interviewer can be important, but if they prefer to look at a random object, then that's fine too, as long as they're looking in the same direction, just off camera, and their eyes aren't bouncing all over the place. Ask them to arrive at least 15 to 30 minutes early to make any last adjustments and for them to settle in. If you're conducting the interviews, let them know that they'll be coached through the whole process. That way there's no pressure for them to deliver perfect answers right away. Encourage them to ask for breaks if they need them, and make sure to provide them with a bottle of water before the interview starts. I know a lot of people forget the bottle of water, but whenever you're talking for a long time, you're gonna be parched and you need a drink of water. So it's great to have one and bring one ahead of time so that way they don't bring it up and they feel comfortable the whole way through. By following these tips, your interview subject is gonna be all set for a relaxed and enjoyable interview experience. Now let's talk about some practical setup tips for these interviews. I can spend a whole video talking about setup tips, but here are a few items that I think are the most important to think about. It starts by choosing the appropriate background. Maybe it's company HQ or out in the field, or maybe it's in a studio. What's really best depends on the story that you're trying to tell. Next, aim for at least a 2-camera setup. This gives you more flexibility in post to hide any bad takes or cuts, which is super handy to have. For lighting, if you're just starting out, go for a basic 3-point lighting setup consisting of a key light, a fill light, and a hair light. This lighting setup should be the first lighting setup to master if you're planning on conducting interviews. For more advanced lighting techniques, check out this channel called Epic Light Media, as they talk about everything lighting and honestly are some of the best people on the platform talking about it. When you're setting up your subject, make sure to think about where they're looking too. Personally, I prefer when the subject is looking just off camera if we want the audience to feel like they're hearing a personal story. But if they're making a direct statement or a call to action to the audience, have them look directly down the barrel of the camera so they can make that connection. It's really a preference, but for us, we decide that well beforehand, depending on the video that we're making. Now let's talk audio. Having good sound is half the battle when it comes to shooting interviews. First off, ensure that your location is not noisy or echoey. If you need to reduce the echo of a room, consider treating the room with sound blankets. Moving blankets work just as well too. When you're surrounded by a bunch of flat walls, there's really nothing for the sound to absorb into. What ends up happening is it's bouncing off the walls all over the place and it's echoing. Sound blankets help absorb the sound and reduce the echo of the room, making the audio quality much better. For mics, I like to use an overhead boom mic for richer sound quality. I'm currently using the Rode NTG5 paired with the Zoom F3 recorder that does 32-bit recording. If that's not an option, Rode Wireless Go mics or the Pro mics can do the trick. The Zoom F3 and the Rode Wireless Pro mics both have 32-bit recording. Long story short, having 32-bit recording is incredibly useful to ensure that the person being interviewed doesn't clip the audio levels if they decide to talk louder or laugh or scream on camera. Same goes when they don't talk loud enough. If you're looking at the Rode Wireless Go system, the regular Go mics don't have 32-bit recording. You're gonna need the Pro mics to do that. It's super useful, and the recording takes place in the transmitter itself. Now, before we talk about interview questions, it's best to record your subject saying and spelling their first and last name on camera for the editor to use later, and also to mention their company name and position if they want it in the video. Alright, now let's move into crafting the perfect interview questions. If you're only using a list of questions to conduct interviews, you're kind of wasting your time and the interviewee's time. Instead, we like to start with a series of rich talking points. Rich talking points are those 15 to 20 second gems that provide depth and communicate powerful messages or experiences. These are perfect for testimonial videos and promotional videos. When you're coming up with your interview questions, think about how each question can either lead to a rich talking point or serve as a quick, impactful soundbite. Now, the reason I say you might be wasting your time by just making a list of interview questions versus starting with rich talking points is because if you make a list of 10, 20, 30 interview questions, you're not really going to use them all in a 2-minute video or a 3-minute video, because each rich talking point takes about 30 seconds to deliver, sometimes the whole minute. So let's talk about some numbers. If you're aiming for a 2-minute video, you'll want about 6 to 8 rich talking points. For a 3-minute video, plan for 9 to 12. And if you're going for 5 minutes, think 15 to 20 rich talking points. But also don't forget, you'll need to make some time for an introduction, perhaps a call to action, and a good outro for the video. These little pieces also take about 10 to 30 seconds, but they're absolutely essential for creating a good beginning and ending to the video, as well as a call to action for your viewers to do what they need to do, like go to a website, or check out a link, or download a free Notion guide. I'm not doing that this video, so you guys are gonna have to take notes on your own, basically. And yeah, speaking of sound bites, these are the short 10-second snippets that can quickly get your point across. They're perfect for those secondary messages that still pack a punch. If you know ahead of time what talking points you'd like to see in the video, another effective strategy is to create a series of concise, impactful sentences for your subject to read verbatim. But make sure you get their approval on these sentences before making them say them, or else they might not agree with them and you're really just wanting them to say whatever you want them to say. They have to agree with it first. But they're super useful to have ahead of time, and if you want, you could even email it to them ahead of time so that way they could approve of it. For example, you might craft sentences like, collaborating with Blue Sky Enterprises transformed our customer service strategy. Or, thanks to Pinnacle Dynamics, we achieved a 50% increase in operational efficiency. These structured sentences can make your messages clear and super effective. And that's a wrap for today's video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more insights and tips on video production. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.